Hey boys and girls, I'm here with Jordan, and today what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the Highlander. This is the brand new 2024 refresh of the Model 3, and that's a mouthful. Yeah. So what we're looking at is somebody's going to look at the interior. Jordan and I are going to just kind of like breeze around here and have a look at what is actually changed. Now, both of us have driven this, and I found this to be hugely better as far as response is concerned. Okay, so Munro has its own built-in test track. Some people call it Featherstone Road, but we call it our test track. Up ahead of us is the little washboard area that I like to go over to find out how a car can perform. Unfortunately, we got two electric vehicles in back of us, and or in front of us, I should say. But have a look at these guys bouncing around on this incredibly bad piece of road. Now, look at this. No hands, and it goes exactly where it's supposed to. So let's try that one more time now that I know how I can get around in a circle. Here we are going into the same nasty mess. And just look at this. This is like, you can feel that there might be a bump underneath you, but this seems much smoother than what I recall in the other Model 3 that we have. Let's just take it for a little bit down here. So the acceleration is really good.
So Sandy,
yes.
Tesla says they improved the performance and handling.
Yes, I can guarantee you that that's the truth. The handling, going over the bumps and whatnot, that's part of handling. But I can tell you that this is as quick as, I used to say that the Model 3 was, it had basically a BMW suspension system, and this is just it's better actually. It's better than the Model 3 we have. Let's just swing over here. I can't go in there. All right, how about this? How about a U-turn that maybe we shouldn't show, but at the end of the day, this is really quick, really responsive. Everything is dead nuts. There's no shake at all in the wheel. Our Model 3 has a slight amount of shake. I don't know exactly why. We've had to try and take it out a couple of times, but this has nothing. There's zero going on. There's no vibration in my hands. I just feel that this has got a huge improvement. I will tell you something else too. And I have it on not chill, but standard mode. So at standard mode, I think it's much quicker and much more responsive than the existing Model 3 we have. This is really a nice vehicle. And I don't exactly know how to put my finger on it, but somehow it just felt different. Yeah. It feels tuned like a race car. I don't know. What did you? Yeah, no, I got very similar impressions, Sandy. It's hard to say until we get it up on a hoist to know if there's anything hardware in the chassis that's changed. But I got the same sensation being in the cabin. I had a Model 3 last summer for 6 or 8 months or so, so it was very in tune with driving, all the noise and so forth. It seems much more subdued. I think that's in large part credit, you know, maybe in some cases the park position of the wipers, right? So like they had talked about this, Tesla that is, in one of their videos where they brought this slip up almost imperceptible to the untrained eye, but every time that air is gliding across the surface and then it's running into something like a wiper, you're going to get turbulence. That turbulence is going to create drag, it's going to create noise, and you're going to hear that in the cabin. Well, actually, while we're on that topic, there was a Renault that did not have a top. And what they did was they created like a lifting body kind of a scenario so that as you drove, it would hit something like this lip, only a lot more dramatic, and it would go over the top of the car. And you can actually drive it in the rain as long as you kept it up, I think around 30 miles an hour or something, 35, that you didn't even get wet if you were driving it. This is a kind of like a miniature version of that. And quite frankly, I never got a chance to drive one of these things, but I've heard from others that did drive it. It was extremely quiet. You didn't get the wind noise that you think you were going to get. And like I say, wind noise in here is like negligible. Yeah. The quietest car is actually sitting on the hoist right over here. That, without a question of a doubt, that's a Cybertruck. And that's the quietest thing I've ever driven. Yeah. I mean, that is truly like a tomb. But this is really, really close. Anyways, you were talking about the glass?
Yeah. I'm happy to see Tesla step up in the NVH game. You know, I think it's lost on a lot of people. You know, no one really pays attention to NVH until it's a problem. And with the former model, I think it was a problem. So kudos to Tesla for addressing this. What we were talking about with the laminated glass is what they've done here in the back. So it's a very unique looking laminated glass. So I suspect this is exactly what they did on the Model S, whereby they've got one thickness of glass, a pane, that is adhered with a laminate in between the inner and the outer pieces of glass. The outer one, in this case, is probably tempered. But what we saw in the Model S is them tailor the geometry at the lower end of that, where the glass, the movable glass, actually attaches to the window mechanism. So instead of having a separate metallic or injection molded piece with rubber and so forth that they have to bond to the window and then create something else that attaches to yet another metallic part on the receiving end of the carrier, they just said, you know what, forget it. We're going to integrate that into the glass, but we're only going to do that with the thin part, and they brought it down on the Model S. So I think they're actually taking, just by looking at the type of glass interface we have here, a page out of the Model S's playbook on the Model 3. So I find that interesting. Also, you can see kind of the difference, you know, Eric, I don't know if you can get a close-up here, whereas the two thicknesses are much more uniformed on the front, between inner and outer with the laminate in between. The giveaway to me is looking at the thickness here on the rear glass. The one, in terms of the Z relationship, this one is much more lower. The inside is much lower, right? It's recessed. And then also just there's a obvious thickness difference. So they did not use the exact same lamination strategy front and rear, but they did go to a laminated glass. So I think that's one of the major enablers in the cabin space for sure, to limiting the noise coming into the cabin.
Let's have a look at the deck here, or the trunk. So you pointed out something that I missed. Why don't you talk about that harness?
Yeah, so I was just looking at the harness and I noticed that the convolute changed quite a bit. So it looks like the convolute, which is this rubber piece, right? So it's fully encapsulating the wires that are going through here to power up the lift gate from the vehicle. The convolute right here is quite a bit different. So on the previous one, it was all what we would call like a bellows section, this kind of corrugated accordion-like section with no separate injection molded piece over the top. Then they had a zip tie around that bundle that looks very much like this, and then they attached it to the lift gate. And this one, they added an injection molded piece, thickened the bundle, and they changed the way that they were attaching to the lift gate. So other than that, if you looked at the hinge, you looked at the lift gate struts, and largely the sheet metal interface, it's very similar. So, you know, you'd say architecturally, the attachment strategy is very similar, yet in a very nuanced sense, if you look closer at the harness, they are making changes as they go. I don't know if they had a quality issue, if it was pinching, what have you, but all of this to me says that they likely did to an extent, because this is protection of the harness.
And it's also more expensive. So anytime that somebody moves to a different protection system or something more expensive, it means that they had some kind of a problem and they wanted to get rid of it. One thing I did like too is if we have a look at the taillights here. In the past, these things were split, and I really didn't think much of that. Now, you've got them attached to the trunk, and quite frankly, I think it looks better. Certainly, it's a nicer style. There's a lot of teeny kind of little styling things that are different, but to me, I think everything they did worked out quite well. I really like it.
You can see both with the lights and with that lower valance sort of lower fascia diffuser area. you can see that they're putting a lot of recesses in. You know, I know the Model 3 often got criticized. I'm not a designer, but certainly folks that are were like, well, it's very planar. There's not enough character lines.
Right.
Well, a lot of what you're seeing here is the introduction of what I think the former model was lacking.
Well, there's some very minor changes that make a big difference as far as the styling is concerned for me. And man, those things, to me anyway, make a big difference. They make customers happy. And I think somebody used the term baby fat or something. I'm not sure what that term exactly means, but I can tell you that I like the style of this better than I liked the former. The only thing I wish they would have done was got rid of those. And really what I would like to see is just a push button and get rid of it. Just like on the Cybertruck or on the what do you call it, Mach-E. So let's have a look at the frunk here, because we noticed a couple of things there as well.
Yeah, Sandy, they changed up quite a bit. Like at first blush, you're like, oh, same kind of corrugation here, fastener showing, same rough geometry. This looks very similar. But upon closer inspection, we noticed that for sure, this is a different cover that the former model did not have. So I don't know if they did this for service access, right? If you were to pull all of this off, what you would see is the whole heat pump system here, as well as the low voltage system, the battery, the driving for all of that. So I don't know if that's just for service. I know previously they showed 2 exposed fasteners here that were securing the frunk, but definitely a change there. And then also, as far as the covers are concerned, with the frunk, this piece right here, where this recovery eye is recessed into, this is quite a bit different. So on the previous iteration, this injection molded piece actually traversed planes, headed up top here, and wrapped around where this latching mechanism is. And likewise, the seal, this bulb seal that close out to the hood, also went out further, right? So I just kind of roughly tracing with my finger where it went on the previous one, it went inside the latch. The thing that I like about this, and it all goes back to the NVH strategy, is it's very possible, there's something called open airness in the NVH world, where if you've got open caverns of air that are seeing that turbulence that we had mentioned earlier, which could very well be coming through here, and you're not sealing that out, you're not providing a layer of protection between that and somehow ingress through to the cabin, that could be a noise producer. And if nothing else, let's say that wasn't an NVH issue, they did something other that's good, which is shorten the length of this bulb seal.
Right.
These bulb seals are not inexpensive, and every inch of that is going to cost them. So they shortened it regardless.
The other thing that they did that we noticed is that they moved the water bottle to a different location. It used to be up here. That could be to, basically there's a radiator in here. Maybe that's to heat up the water bottle for cold climate or something like that. It's hard to say. But this is a much cleaner look than what we saw in the past. Now, you're probably saying, well, why didn't you pull some of these panels off? And, well, they said no. We wanted to. My hand quivered and I went over to, but the last time I did one of those, they saw me break the clips, and that's probably why they said don't do that. Yeah. But I will tell you, this is a much cleaner design than what the old one was. The old one was kind of clumsy. This is elegant, very elegant.
Yeah,
underneath.
I think that what I find most intriguing about this, other than perhaps either heating or the fact that they just wanted this closer to customer, is, you know, my mind starts to go wild with like, oh my God, packaging, what did they do under here? Is there a different heat pump? And then I see this cover. So I think what's more curious to me than anything looking under hood here is what happened underneath that this washer bottle this move is indicative of. Like, most folks probably don't think about it, but Sandy, as you know, when you're talking about washer bottle location and you're in design reviews with all these engineers, they go wild over
space claim. Wait a minute, that's going to weigh my wire. No, that can't be happening there because I've got a hinge, and on and on and on. Everybody fights over every square inch underneath the plenum, well, underneath everything you see here. So that could be what was going on as well.
Well, and
stick it where you can.
And one thing's for sure, this was not done from a cost reduction perspective at first blush, meaning the hose and the harness associated with this bottle now need to go further because ultimately they're getting to the wipers. So
yeah, right here, I think.
That's right. So between that, some of the interior features, the added lamination in the glass, some of the door features, which we haven't yet talked about, what I'm seeing, in fact, is, in many of these instances, they're actually adding some costs in a topical sense. If we went deeper, not sure what we'd find.
Well, I'm sure we're going to find quite a bit, but at the end of the day, this now is more expensive than the Model Y, which is a giant surprise. So we're not going to tear that apart, but let's have a look at the doors, and and let's check out the new 3-point latch mechanism and the hinges.
Yeah, so the 3-point that Sandy's talking about, and you've probably seen it in some other videos, but it's this piece right here, which is a pretty hefty, it looks like either cast aluminum or potentially cast iron. I haven't thrown a magnet on it yet, but piece that's attached to the frame of the door, and that interfaces with this pocket right here that's in the sill of the vehicle. So they're pretty forthright in saying, hey, this was for additional impact protection and so forth. But what it does speak to is side pole and oblique side pole impacts. These events, especially for EVs, you know, as these battery packs are getting heavier and heavier, vehicles are getting heavier, that moment of inertia and how you manage all of that energy coming to the side of the vehicle is incredibly important. And so, hard to say whether or not Tesla had an issue with side impact or they're just adding additional and incremental safety to the customer. I'm not here to speak on that, but this, I'll say regardless, is an interesting way to add safety to the vehicle. What it also tells us, knowing the geometry of the battery pack, is that the sill structure on the body in white versus the battery is one of the larger contributors to the side impact, the structure side of it, right? Because if the battery pack is doing the majority of the load absorption from a side impact perspective, then they're not going to tie into the doors into the body in white sill. Because often in this section of the sill, if it were not structural, it'd just rip right through the sheet metal. And so what it's telling you is likely the extrusion inside of this, if you were to cut a cross section through there, all these structural hard points, as we would refer to them, are all stacking up with one another to really brace for impact.
Well, the other thing too is, as you pointed out, these hinges are cast. The old ones were stamped. These are either cast or they're semi-solid forged. Anyway, one way or another, you're looking at something that, again, is more expensive, usually kind of associated with high-end types of vehicles. This is a high-end, it's a costly kind of a car, but we'd normally see these things on BMWs and sometimes Cadillac and things like that. That's where you usually see this kind of a hinge.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I think Tesla's likely seeing some net benefit from by adding all of these additional reinforcements in the door, the laminated glass, the whole door package really, and like their closure strategy, is this is a massively crucial area, right? All these interfaces between glass and seal, between door and seal, between latch and striker, all of those interfaces in tandem or in a kind of a symphony of closures are what really separate the outside from the inside from a noise perspective. Yeah. So although they're saying, I mean, this is for sure impact, there's a lot of impact related stuff going on here. I'd be willing to bet that they did some serious thinking on how to close this out well and really get those gaps tight.
Well, like I said, when I drove it, I loved it. It was really quiet. And the other thing I liked is the controls now mimic what's up there on the hoist of the Cybertruck, I should say. That just not having stocks, those things are really expensive, and they also have issues. So not having the stocks and putting the forward, reverse, turn signals, everything kind of either embedded into the wheel or right off the screen makes a big difference. Again, everything's getting cleaner and easier and more, I don't know, ergonomic and more artistic.
Yeah. And from a cost perspective, Sandy, I think that points to some of the ins and outs, right? So we see them add rear screens, add content in the way of interior trims, closures over the cup holder, lighting, and so forth. But the stocks they took out, so they're making some cost trade-offs to help get some cash back for the screens. Fog lamps they're taking out, right? So you are seeing, even in terms of the actual content, their customer-facing content, they're making some trade-offs, which are at any OEM, the discussions that are some of the hardest. It's like, are we going to take that away, and what's the impact to marketing?
Well, I'm pretty sure that they got plenty of feedback from their customers. They are very good. Tesla's very, very good at finding out what you like and what you don't like.
Indeed.
And I think for me, the fog lights, what do I need them for? I mean, the lights do fine. I don't need fog lights at all. So having those disappear, I don't care. The stocks, I never liked them ever. So getting rid of those, another good idea. But the things that I do like or did want was quiet. I mean, the other car, the old Model 3 is noisy, no question about it. This one seems to be, like I say, much more nimble. Driving this is a real pleasure. That's a fact.
Yeah, I'm with you, Sandy. But significant upgrade in many respects from the previous one. More so, honestly, than I thought I would see when it came in the door. You know, watching some of the videos, I'm like, oh, slight upgrade, slight upgrade. Actually getting my hands on it, it was a different story.
Well, I wasn't really enthusiastic about even getting my hands on it.
Yeah.
And then Sue came home with the thing, and I mean, it's hard to get Sue excited, and she was just like over the top. So Sue kind of got me to start thinking about taking a ride and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, this is a dream to drive. It's uber comfortable. The Model 3 has always been a comfortable vehicle because of those seats. If you're driving, just everything about it just feels like a huge upgrade. A huge upgrade.
It does. Yeah. Well, what do you think, Sandy? Any other thoughts?
Well, I'm with you, and that's about all we can say about this for right now. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. And to the Tesla folks, thanks for giving us a car that we didn't have to say anything bad about. That doesn't happen very often. Thanks. Keep watching, and thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sandy.